side, I would stay. In your arms, I would lay. Jesus, lover of my soul, nothing from you I withhold. Lord, I love you and adore you. What more can I say? You cause my love to grow stronger with every passing day. By your side, I would stay. In your arms, I would lay. Jesus, lover of my soul, nothing from you I withhold. Lord, I love you and adore you. What more can I say? You cause my love to grow stronger with every passing day. Lord, I love you and adore you. What more can I say? You cause my love to grow stronger with every passing day. I stand amazed when I realize your love for me is beyond all measure, Lord. I can't deny your love for me is great. It's as high as the heavens above. Such is the depth of your love. To know you to be you. You make my life brand new. Father, I love you. I stand amazed when I realize your love for me is beyond all measure, Lord. I can't deny your love for me. It is fragrance as high as the heavens above. Such is the depth of your love to all those who believe in you. Far as the east is from west, you have removed my transgression. You make my life brand new. Father,
Greetings to our viewers from around the world. During the past 3 years, we have had a series of messages covering the Old and New Testament of the Bible, alternating between the two every Sunday without a break, except on important festivals like Christmas, Easter, and sometimes New Year, when we would have a special message pertaining to that particular festival that we were celebrating at that time. We did it this year too. We will have a longer break this time with a series of 5 messages given live at our annual conference in October in Sri Rangapatna. We hope to present them live on YouTube at the conference, but unfortunately, because of technical issues, it could not be done. The following 5 messages will be a rerun of those messages, so our members who could not attend and our viewers on YouTube may not miss these messages that cover a very important topic. Greetings and welcome to the conference 2023. You may have not realized it, but this conference would have been our 51st if we did not miss 2 years of conference in 2020 and 2021. We started with the first Indian conference in 1973 at Kodaikanal. Over the years, we have been for festivals in Mahabaleshwar, Goa, Lanavla, Nasrapur, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Mahabalipuram, Srirangapatna, Yelagiri, and Sri Lanka. Maybe next year, God willing, we will celebrate our 50th annual conference. If someone has the time, we can put together a slideshow of pictures from all the conferences that we've had so far. It would be interesting and exciting. The theme of this conference is how God's grace covers the flaws of men. How God's grace covers the flaws of men. We find that the opening statement in the Bible says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." We read a summary of what God created or recreated on the earth. He took it from chaos and confusion to the most beautiful piece of art, a poetry in motion, beauty beyond belief, and serendipity. Except that all this creation did not happen by chance, but by the will of God and culminated in the creation of man. And all that God made was very good, as is mentioned in Genesis chapter 1, verses 31. Genesis 1 verses 31, where it says, God looked over everything he had made, and it was so good, so very good. The earth, including the creation of man, was so beautiful that God tells Job in Job chapter 38 verses 4 to 7, Job 38 verses 4 to 7, "Where were you when I created the earth? Tell me, since you know so much. Who decided on its size? Certainly you'll know that. Who came up with the blueprint and the measurements? How was its foundation poured, and who set the cornerstone while the morning stars sang in chorus and all the angels shouted praise? And who took charge of the ocean when it gushed forth like a baby from the womb? That was me. I wrapped it in soft clouds and tucked it safely at night. These verses are talking about the initial creation of the earth several thousands, probably many, many thousands years ago, probably even a millennia ago, when the earth was at that time was not created for man. When it talks in Genesis about in the beginning, it is talking about the earth being recreated for man. We will look at this more deeply in the coming sermons. God recreated the earth as mentioned in Genesis 1 verse 3 onwards. Finally, God made man in his image and included with it the freedom of choice. Was this a mistake? Did God understand the consequences of this freedom? Of course he did. He gave man the freedom of choice for a very special reason. Without this freedom, man would never have been able to develop the godly character that God needed in man and make him metamorphosize into a child of God, an eternal son and daughter of God. God allowed Satan and his demons to roam the earth. This too was not a mistake. Satan and his demons were required by God to tempt mankind so they would learn to resist them and still build godly character suitable for the kingdom of God. Without the freedom to choose, man would have become a living robot and not a living soul with the potential of becoming a godly soul. But God did not end there. He talked to Adam and Eve, walked with them, and taught them his laws, what was right and wrong. We don't know how much time lapsed during that period. They had a lot to learn about how to live, make a living, have a family, parenting, and above all, what is right and wrong, ethics and morality. When they sinned, it was not a one-off casual eating of a fruit from the forbidden tree. It was a deliberate, premeditated decision to rebel against God. They may have made some mistakes when God was training them, and that was fine. This eating of the fruit of knowledge of good and evil was a decision they both made, inspired by Satan. By doing so, they fell from grace and was pierced by many sorrows. God warned mankind that the path he had chosen to take would, as recorded in Genesis chapter 3, verses 17 to 19. Genesis 3 verses 17 to 19. He told the man, because you listened to your wife and ate from the tree that I commanded you not to eat, don't eat from this tree. The very ground is cursed because of you. Getting food from the ground will be as painful as having babies is for your wife. You'll be working in pain all your life long. Going on here. The ground will sprout thorns and weeds. You'll get your food the hard way, planting and tilling and harvesting, sweating in the fields from dawn to dusk, until you return to the ground yourself, dead and buried. You started out as dirt, you'll end up dirt. This was the beginning of man's journey from fulfilling God's great plan for mankind to man fulfilling his own plan for himself or herself. Man fell from grace and became flawed. His flaws through generations would multiply. The sins of the fathers would affect the children, from generation to generation. Today, we are seeing the results of the cumulative sins of mankind and its repercussions on this world. We are slowly but surely moving towards a complete destruction of ourselves and this earth which God made and gave to us. History is in the process of repeating itself. The earth was created beautiful once and destroyed before it was recreated for man. It did not take long for this perfect world to move from a happy, fulfilled, intimate relationship with the true God to a flawed world ruled by flawed man at enmity with God. Adam and Eve suffered many pains soon after they were removed from the Garden of Eden. Their firstborn son turned out to be a delinquent, lying, jealous, and violent man who killed his righteous brother Abel. Violence, promiscuity, immorality, idolatry, and every evil conceived in the heart of man ruled the earth. Genesis chapter 5. Genesis chapter 5. Let's look at that. Genesis chapter 5. Verses 5 to, Genesis chapter 6, verses 5 to 7. Genesis 6 verses 5 to 7. God saw that human evil was out of control. People thought evil, imagined evil, evil from morning to night. God was sorry that he had made the human race in the first place. It broke his heart. God said, I will get rid of my ruined creation. Make a clean sweep. People, animals, snakes and bugs, birds and the works. I'm sorry I made them. God knew that man could sin. He hoped she didn't. But the possibility existed because God gave man the one thing that could skew up all his creation, and that was free moral agency, the freedom of choice. He also equipped them with intelligence, which could help them make the right choices, but at the same time allow them to make the wrong choices, thus giving them the opportunity to use that intellect for evil. Also, man had to contend with Satan and his demons. So man had a lot of things against him, going against him, so to speak. But there were a lot of things in his favor, and he could have succeeded. We will study the far-reaching effects of Satan and how our gracious God delivered and will deliver mankind from it all in the upcoming messages. Yet God knew that this freedom was essential to get man to where God intended to take him. God may have, however, not expected that man would become so depraved in such a short time. By the time of Noah, man had got so bad that God decided to destroy all his creation. Noah, the one righteous man, saved the day for mankind and gave God hope that through him mankind could get another chance. God's grace showered upon Noah covered the flaws of man. He destroyed all of mankind except Noah and his family, and because of him saved pairs of animals of all living things so that they could propagate after the flood. Through the flood, God put the brakes on the moral slide of man, but not for long. The Tower of Babel showed God that flawed man was continuing in his downward moral trend. So he confused their languages. This helped scatter all of mankind to the far corners of the world and prevented them from pooling their intelligence and efforts together to create a world that would destroy itself before he intended it to happen. There are three types of people in the world: the common, the bad, and the ones in between. The commonly good live their lives as best as they possibly can and expect God to bless them. This particular site gives a kind of an inkling of what man was, what the common man and woman was. They went on in life, and for them life goes on, and this world keeps on turning. Everything goes on smoothly and easily by and large, and they feel that if they continue to be good, God will bless them. The bad who know that they are bad, the bad are there who know that they are bad, and are content to live that lifestyle. They are incorrigibly wicked. They think evil is good and good is evil. Then they are the ones in between who suffer at the hands of this evil world and sometimes become suicidal. The Bible tells us in Jeremiah chapter 17 verse 9, Jeremiah 17 verse 9, the heart is hopelessly dark and deceitful, a puzzle that no one can figure out. That's the way God looks upon the way man is, and Jeremiah the prophet shows us the heart of man. And this has not just happened. God did not create man bad. He became bad over a period of time to the extent that he's become really bad today. Mark chapter 7 verses 20 to 23 said, he went on, as Jesus said, he went on, it's what comes out of a person that pollutes. Obscenities, lust, theft, murders, adulteries, greed, depravity, deceptive dealings, carousing, mean looks, slander, arrogance, foolishness. All these are the vomit from the heart. Now that's the way mankind has become today. If he conceives evil in his mind, and then that comes out in action. Was this the man God created? No. This is the description of what man became. But God is in the process of restoring man to what he was intended to be, and that is a great hope we have for the future. In the meantime, God made some course corrections to prevent man from becoming too evil too early. But in spite of all these course corrections, by the time of Abraham, all of mankind had forgotten the true God and worshipped idols. This included Abraham and his family. Joshua chapter 24 verses 2 to 3 tells us, this is what God, the God of Israel, says. A long time ago, your ancestors Terah and his sons Abraham and Nahor lived to the east of the river Euphrates. They worshipped other gods. It is very clearly mentioned to us that Abraham was an idol worshipper. He wasn't good from the very beginning. He was an evil man, just like everyone else in the world. This is so it says here, they worshipped other gods. In the next message, which will be aired in the next Sunday, we will look at how sin came into the world, who was responsible for it, and how God is going to deliver mankind in spite of the insurmountable odds. The purpose of doing so is to study the flaws and failures of man and how it came about. These flaws and its origin should lead us to look at our flaws and failings and acknowledge them for what they are. By seeing our flaws, we will turn our eyes to Jesus, who died and rose from the dead to take away our flaws and make us perfect. We can hope to draw closer to God and realize and understand all that Jesus Christ had done for us. We will want to worship Jesus, realizing that it is a transformative process. We will experience the transforming grace of Jesus Christ that will slowly but surely heal us of our flaws. We will also learn how we can stand up to Satan, just like Jesus stood up to him at the great temptation, and win That is mentioned in Matthew chapter 11, verses 1 to 11. I won't turn to those scriptures. We will see through the example of Abraham how the grace of God works with the flaws of men, transforming the flaws into favor. We will see that when sin reigns darkest, grace shines brightest. God's nature and undying love for mankind comes to the fore, showing how God can take the worst case scenario and transform it into the best case scenario. So we see that happen in the life of Abraham. Abraham is a very good example of how God actually does it, and he transformed Abraham into a pillar of faith and hope for all mankind. Abraham was an idol worshipper like his father and everyone who lived in his household. Abraham had done nothing to deserve God's call. There was no piety in him that brought him closer to God. He did not even have the slightest inkling as to who was the true God. God just called Abraham, and Abraham answered the call and obeyed. It's as simple as that. He was obedient and he answered the call of God. So let's look at Genesis chapter 12. Genesis chapter 12 says in verses 1 to 6, God told Abraham, "Leave your country, your family, and your father's home for a land that I will show you. I'll make you a great nation and bless you. I'll make you famous. You'll be a blessing. I'll bless those who bless you. Those who curse you, I'll curse. All the families of the earth will be blessed through you." And so you can see God making this great promise to Abraham, and Abraham was in the process of becoming good and obedient to God. So Abraham left just as God said, and Lot left with him. Abraham was 75 years old when he left Haran. Abraham took his wife Sarai and his nephew Lot with him, along with all the possessions and people they had gotten in Haran, and set out for the land of Canaan and arrived safe and sound. So you can see how this was a feat that Abraham had done by actually traveling, and you can imagine what traveling could have been like in those days. But Abraham made one mistake in his obedience to God. And you can see how this flawlessness in man works in all of us. We may be even obedient to God, but we will make a few mistakes along the way. We'll make a few compromises along the way, and as a result of that, suffer. What is the mistake Abraham made? He took along with him his nephew Lot, the son of his brother, who apparently died earlier. Abraham had no children, and Lot had become like his son. He loved Lot and did not want to leave without him. Why was this such a big deal for God that Lot should not have gone with Abraham? God's call was a pure call to only one man and his family. Lot was not part of Abraham's family. God wanted to create a new people who were devoted to him, a people who would not worship idols, a people who were about to be set apart. God's long-term plan was to create a unique nation, and as this nation prospered, blessed by God, all the people of the world would look at this nation with admiration and want to follow them. In the process, other nations would receive the blessings that God had in store for Abraham and his family. They would see Abraham's example and forsake their gods and follow Abraham, the God of Abraham. Abraham, taking Lot along with him, turned out to be a big mistake, as I said earlier. He had problems with Lot and asked him to part company. In spite of the training Lot got from Abraham, he chose to live in Sodom and was almost eliminated along with his family by fire when Sodom was destroyed. He thought he had chosen the most lucrative place by moving to Sodom, but instead of gaining wealth, he lost everything: his wife, his sons in law, and all his possessions when he fled from Sodom. And things didn't go well for Lot. He committed incest with his two daughters, something that was looked upon with shock and horror even today. Out of the relationship with his older daughter, the nation of Moab was born, from which came Ruth, who became the great 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 grandmother of David and eventually Jesus. We are also told that in spite of all that happened, Lot was considered righteous by God. In Second Peter chapter 2, Second Peter chapter 2 verses 7 to 8, it tells us, "But the good man Lot, driven nearly out of his mind by the sexual filth and perversity, was rescued, surrounded by moral rot day after day after day. That righteous man was in constant torment." So God knows how to rescue the godly from evil trials. He knows how to hold the feet of the wicked to the fire until judgment. When sin reigns darkest, grace shines brightest. Things did not go well for Abraham either. He turned out to be a serial offender. When there was a famine in the land, God promised him. He went to Egypt, where he, out of fear, lied that his wife was his sister and allowed Pharaoh to betroth his wife Sarah. The Bible tells us that Pharaoh gifted Abraham with silver, gold, sheep, cattle, male and female donkeys, servants, and camels. And Pharaoh was a very rich man even in those days. In doing this act, out of fear for his life, Abraham's faith, confidence, and trust and morality crumbled. His deception began with a fear for the safety, or for his safety, but the next act was a premeditated one when he again sold the honor of Sarah for wealth to King Abimelech of Gerar. And this is mentioned in the book of Genesis. We could read it. It's very interesting reading. Again, God intervened and saved Sarah's honor. However, we see a gradual transformation in Abraham, who displayed generosity in allowing Lot to choose the land he would want to acquire instead of making the first choice. We have to remember that Abraham did have that right to make the first choice because he was the uncle of Lot, and Lot was only his nephew. In the beginning, Abraham started well. He followed God to the place called Shechem, which is, I'll show you in the map here. Place called Shechem. On his journey, Abraham developed a habit of building altars. So in the beginning, and then it followed that Abraham building altars, calling on the name of God and worshipping God wherever he went. He did this in Shechem, Bethel, and Ai, and they are all shown in the map there. And this is mentioned in Genesis chapter 12, verses 7 to 9. Along the way, however, he lost track. When he went to the Negev, he did not build an altar. When he went to Egypt again, there was no altar and worship. On his exit from Egypt, and we know that during that time he made all the serial mistakes that he made, and then on his exit from Egypt, he traced his path via the Negev all over again, and there was no altar or worship. It was only when he arrived in Bethel he remembered to worship God as at the temple he built earlier. Abraham rediscovered worship. Worship transformed Abraham. Calling the name of God transformed Abraham. Here his avarice gave way to generosity. when he gave Lot the best land. Abraham nurtured the habit of and spiritual discipline of worship, not just for himself, but his entire household community. His mistake of selling his wife's honor to Pharaoh and Abimelech took place when he drifted away from God. Corporate worship on Sundays, small groups, Bible studies, etc., are powerful means of grace that God makes available to us. When we pull ourselves out of these rhythms, we stop experiencing the full power of God's transforming grace. At such times, not only does our transformation come to a pause, we start slipping back into our old sinful patterns. In the coming sermons, we will see where sin originated and its impact on mankind. We will also see as how God's grace puts a brake on this downward trend from time to time to prevent man from reaching the point of no return. Let us remember and never forget that there is a point of no return. Satan reached that point and therefore cannot be redeemed. We could too. Also, Satan is keen on getting us to the point where he is right now, if we allow him to do so. But thanks be to God, we have hope. Paul tells us in Romans 7 verses 15 to 21, yet the rescuing gift is not exactly parallel to the death-dealing sin. If one man's sin put crowds of people at the dead-end abyss of separation from God, just think what God's gifts poured through one man, Jesus Christ, will do. There is no comparison between the death-dealing sin and this generous life-giving gift. The verdict on that one sin was the death sentence. The verdict on the many sins that followed was this wonderful life sentence. If death got the upper hand through one man's wrongdoings, can you imagine the breathtaking recovery life makes? Sovereign life in those who grasp with both hands this wildly extravagant life gift. This grand setting everything right that the one man Jesus Christ provides. So there is a part we have to play in this whole thing. God's gifts are extravagant, they are so generous, but we have to grasp them. We have a job to do in this whole process. Here it is in a nutshell. Just as one person did it wrong and got us all in this trouble with sin and death, another person did it right and got us out of it. But more than just getting us out of trouble, he got us into life. One man said no to God and put many people in the wrong. One man said yes to God and put many in the right. All that passing laws against sin did not produce more lawbreakers, but sin didn't and doesn't have a chance in competition with the aggressive forgiveness we call grace. When it's sin versus grace, grace wins hands down. All sin can do is threaten us with death, and that's the end of it. Grace, because God is putting everything together again through the Messiah, invites us into life, a life that goes on and on and on, world without end. We celebrate this conference every year because we have hope. We know that we will not perish, even though on the face of it, the odds are against us. In the coming messages, we will see how great those odds are. However, victory and success will be ours. Thanks to God, all worship and honor to Him for His extravagant generosity towards us. What can we give Him in return? Our faith, trust, and confidence in Him. Our willingness to come together to worship Him, dedicate these 6 days to Him, sitting at His feet and learn from Him and learn from each other so we can go home and spread the good news of salvation to all the world. Let us pray and ask God as we think and ponder upon what you heard and learned today. Let us go to God and ask Him for that generous grace that He showers on all of us, and let us grasp that grace with both our hands, just as Paul tells us in Romans. Our Father in heaven, our great God and Redeemer, you've done so many things for us in our lives. And we thank you so much for all that you've done for us. No amount of thanks that we can give you will be sufficient compared to what you've done for us. But all we can do is to stay close to you, be faithful to you, obey you in everything that we do, and in spite of the pressures that we face from outside, and we've just learnt about the different kind of pressures that we have today, and especially the temptation of Satan, we know that you are always there to be with us, support us, guide us, and lead us if we allow you to do so. And you want us to allow you to do so. You want us not to slacken from following you, your Son Jesus Christ throughout our journey in life. You want us to do that, because if we don't, you warn us in many places in the Bible that we will not remain stagnant, but we'll slip backwards into sin and into the grasp of Satan and his demons. And once we get there, Satan is going to make sure over a period of time to make us so wicked and so incorrigibly wicked that there'll be a point of no return. And you want us to make sure we don't ever reach that point of no return, because then there is only one judgment for us, the fires of hell. Thank you, Father, for showing us what we need to do. Thank you for blessing us throughout our lives so far, for protecting us both physically and spiritually. And we ask you during this year to do so for us. Protect us and help us to stay close to you. Help us to resolve to always stay near your Son, Jesus Christ. Thank you for your love and your abiding concern for us, and your promise that you will never leave us or forsake us. Thank you for all that, and we ask for your continued blessings on us and on this world. We thank you for everything and ask all this in Jesus' holy and most blessed name. Amen.